Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reading Copy episode number 7. Today we are going to read the third Gary Halbert letter. Today is going to be It's going to be a shorter show than usual, simply because this newsletter from Gary Halbert is pretty. It's focused a lot in direct mail, right? And I am not really interested in direct mail. I'm more interested in things that we can apply to to direct response marketing online, right, or digital, let's say. So the direct mail strategies and that kind of stuff, if they don't apply to things that we can use online and digital in the digital age, let's say, I'm not really interested. I'm not saying that there is no value at all in this kind of stuff, but it's not my area of expertise, right? And I'm not really interested in it. However, this newsletter has quick lessons that we can take to write our guarantees and about email and about how to format a sales page, right? So let's begin. This sales letter was this is the topic of this newsletter, right? 20 ways to increase the response of your direct mail without changing a word of your copy. So from those 20 ways, we have probably like 3 or 4 that actually apply to something, to stuff that we can use right today. And here's the first one. The first one is basically the logic behind how email works. And when I say email, I'm not talking about like the ESPs or yeah, ESPs is yeah, the email service providers and that kind of stuff. Or the algorithms, right? I'm talking about the very basic stuff that makes an email strategy works, right? This kind of sounds dumb, but you kind of have to follow. You have to know this logic before you even try to do anything on email, right? So he talks here about how direct mail works, right? But we can apply actually these same rules to email. So here's the logic, right, of email, of why an email works or it doesn't, right? So first, nobody will respond to your mail unless they read your mails. This is the same for email. No one is going to respond or reply or make click in on your link if no one is reading your email. So in order to people read your email, they have to open your email, right? So nobody will read your email unless they open your mail. And the same applies for he's talking about like envelopes, right? Like physical mail, but we are talking about here about email, and no one is going to read your email if they don't open it before, right? If they don't click on your email when it arrives to their inbox, right? So the third rule is nobody will open your mail or your email in this case unless the post office delivers your mail. And this could be translated to no one will open your mail if it's going to the spam folder, right? That's how we can translate it. And the last rule is the post office will not deliver your mail unless your mail is delivered to the post office. I don't know how to translate this, but basically it's nobody will respond to your email unless they read your email. So no one will click on your link if they don't read your email. And in order to read your email, they have to open your email. That means writing a good subject line, right? The other the following rule is nobody will open your mail unless the post office delivers your mail. So if your email is going to the spam folder, the post office in this scenario will be the email service provider, right? So if Google, Gmail, I don't know, Yahoo, or Microsoft, they are not sending your email to the primary tab, and they are sending it uh, to the spam folder. Well, they are no one is going to read your email, right? So this and the last one, I don't really know how to translate it. The post office will not deliver your email unless your mail is delivered to the post office. So basically, you have to send the email, right? If this could be a bit more complex take, will be if you are not using um, a good email software, like for example, you have those free email software, right? Like Mailchimp, for example. One of the problems with Mailchimp is that if you are on the free version, you get assigned a random IP, right? An IP address. So if that IP address was used in the past for sending spam email and that kind of stuff, you are not going to your efforts are going to be useless, right? Because your email is not getting delivered because someone else's used your IP address in the past to send spam, right? So I think this one we can translate it to uh, pick the right pick a dedicated IP address, right? Uh, Simply because if he's talking about here about giving physically your envelopes, right, to the post office. So the post office in this case would be the Gmail, for example, right? So if your Mailchimp is not doing it the right work to make the Gmail receive those emails that you are sending, you have to change it, right? This is my translation of this. It's not the best, but that's something that you can apply, right? So and the next part of this letter is it's very focused on direct mails, right? So I'm not really going to read it, but I want to analyze one of the sections in this letter about how to do the math, right? And that's the second lesson. The first lesson was what's the logic behind email, right? And direct mail in this case, but what's the logic behind email? And the second one is how to do the math for the reader, right? Because here in this particular section is talking about how some email some direct mail doesn't even get sent because the post office has problems or the people working in the post office don't want to send it, right? It's basically talking about the human factor uh, um, when it comes to do anything, right? So he is talking about that, and he's making the math about how much stuff how much mail gets lost in the mail, right? But what it's interesting to me is it's how he's doing the math for the reader, right? So let's take a look here. Let's read this. So about 17% minimum of all your mail that is correctly addressed, so even if you do things right, this is going to happen to you, never gets delivered simply because it gets thrown away. Your mail also never gets forward to those folks who have moved, which on any given list at any given time is about 7% of the total, right? So he's basically just giving you data here. So far, 10% didn't get delivered to the post office, 24% didn't get delivered by the post office, and now finally, we've got approximately 66,000 pieces of mail out of the 100,000 that we paid for that has actually been delivered, right? What happens next? What happens next is that at least half of your 66,000 pieces of mail that did manage to get delivered gets immediately thrown away. So what I'm referring to when I say to do the math is take a look of how many um, data he gave you, right? He gave you this number. He did the math for you. You don't have to imagine, or you don't have to think about how um, how much is 10% from the total, right? You don't have to imagine to stop and think about what this 24% even means, right? Because he's telling you what everything means. But that's not all. It's also not making you think about the end result, right? He's telling you, hey, this is what happens at the end. So this is what all these numbers mean. And this is one of the mistakes I find in I find it often in the internet, right? Which is like not doing the math, or doing the math but hoping that people just understand what these numbers mean, because he could have given you just the data, and that will be fine, and it will be correct, right? Because he's just giving you the numbers, and you have to think for yourself. But one good piece of advice about writing copy is you don't have the people reading shouldn't have to think; they just have to read, right? And you have to make them understand in very simple terms what the math behind your behind your logic, right? The logic of your product, or whatever, of your solution, right? So yeah, this is a really good example of how to do the math. You don't just give them the numbers, you give them the numbers, and then you tell them exactly what does that mean in an example, right, using real numbers. And then you tell them what does those numbers mean, like in real terms, right? In real life, what does that those numbers mean, right? What happens next is that at least half of your pieces of mail that did manage to get delivered gets immediately thrown away. That's what's happened. That's the consequence in the real world about all this data that he was giving you, right? So that's about this lesson. Do the math and tell them, do the math, all the steps, right? Just no, give them the numbers and do the math for them, and then tell them what the math means, right? So lesson number one is the logic uh, behind email. Why an email? What necessary aspects you need to create the most minimum available email strategy, let's say. And the second lesson is this one, the thing about doing the math, right? And the third lesson, it's going to be more about copy, and it's going to be a pretty quick one. It's going to be about sales letter, right? So here is one of the advices. One This is advice about copy, right? About a sales letter, and he says, retype your sales letter and use wider margins and more subheads. Also, make certain things stand out by showcasing them in bold, like I'm doing in this letter. So that's a pretty quite straightforward advice, right? Uh, do all this to provide eye relief, to make your sales page, to make your sales message more inviting and less formidable when your prospect first sees your letter. And that's quite simple, right? You have to What he's basically saying is that you have to use wider margins. The margins are, I think, this one, right? This is a margin, this is another margin, this is another margin, and this is another. So they're not really wide here, but this is also not a sales letter. So and the other thing, basically what he's talking about here is about white space, which is if you have this whole page covered in copy, like imagine this copy, which is quite blocky and really heavy. Imagine that this copy was like uh, it was this long, right? Not just a paragraph, but it was a one single paragraph or several paragraphs like this, like really line after line. Instead of having something like this, you have one mildly long paragraph, and you have a pretty short line, another pretty short paragraph, a medium paragraph, you could say, one line, one line, one line, one line, right? So that's what he's talking about. Like, you have to format your copy so it's easy to read, and more important, so it doesn't scare your customer away, right? Because he's saying here, um no, sorry, where it was. Oh yeah. So do all this to provide eye relief, to make your sales message more inviting and less formidable when your prospect first sees your letter. So this is not even about the readability of your copy. This is about the first impression that your copy generates. So if the first thing that the person see is this kind of paragraph, like, right, they're going to be scared, and they're going to say, oh, this is a lot, I'm not going to read this, and they are just going to throw your email away, or they're going to close your email, or they're going to throw your mail away. So yeah, that's more about the again, it's not the readability, it's more about the first impression that your copy generates on people. So yeah, leave a lot of white spaces like this is white space, and every, you see how he uses one line after a paragraph. That is something that makes things easier to read, or at least easier to read, or it gives the perception that it's easier to read, right? The next lesson is about the guarantee. Change your 10-day or 30-day or 60-day guarantee to a full 1-year guarantee. Did you know that the longer the customer has to request a refund, the less likely he is to do so? If you offer a 10-day guarantee, your customers will be very conscious of it, and the refund deadline will be in the forefront um, of their beady little minds. Beady, I don't know what beady. Basically, what he's saying is, if you give a 10-day, right, a 10-day guarantee, people is going to be thinking, like the first day they're going to say, okay, I have 9 days to see if this works. The second day they're going to say, okay, I have 8 days to see if this works, and it and the next day they're going to say, okay, I have 7 days, right? They're going to be really conscious about the deadline on the guarantee. However, if you have, like, he says 1 year, right? So it's, let's say 34 days, right? So if they have this kind of guarantee, they're just going to say, "Oh, okay, I have 1 year about to ask for a refund, right? So I'm just going to test it, and I'm going to test it for 1 month, 6 months, and they're probably going to just forget that they bought the product in the first place, because the 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 deadline on the guarantee, it's so long that they are going to feel like it's forever, and by the time that year it's gone, they're probably going to be already solved their problem, or they are not going to even remember about this guarantee or something like that. So yeah, what he's saying is, um, a shorter deadline on the guarantee makes people conscious about if that guarantee works or not, or the product works or not, right? But if you have a longer guarantee, my advice, it's always 180 days, which is 6 months, right? 6 months. But I think it's the same logic, right? With, if you give someone 6 months, they're probably going to even forget about the product that they bought. So that's about the guarantee, right? So lesson number one, it's about the email logic. Lesson number two, it's about doing the math. Lesson number three is about how to format your copy so it doesn't scare people away. And the last one is this one about the guarantee. And the next one, I don't know what is it about. Put your phone number in the body of the copy of all your letters and invite your customers to call you if they have any questions. This makes your prospects feel like it's safe to order, like they can reach out and touch you if necessary. And of course, the safer they feel, the more likely they are to order. And the translation to our today's world will be basically, um, use you have to have some kind of customer support, right? um, Customer attention, I don't know how it's called, but you have to include some email or some phone number or something like that, that makes it look like it's easy to reach out and solve their problems in case that they have something, right? So if something, you can add like a paragraph or something on your copy or your offer or your website or anything that says, okay, you can, if anything goes wrong at any point, or if you have any questions, you can send an email to this email direction, this email address, or you can phone this number. And that's about it. It's about making people feel safe and that it will be effortless to solve their problems in case that something arises. So anyway, this was a bit shorter than usual, but uh, this is it's about, right? Just reading the Gary Halbert letter and take little nuggets or little quick lessons that we can apply in today's age. And that's about it. So I hope you enjoy it, and feel free to leave a comment or something like that. Thank you very much.